see what
I don't know what you're doing, man, but
إذا ما في نحول ما في كان موجود خلاص كان موجود. طيب أنا ما أدري إيش بسوي يعني.
Just a couple quick announcements. Firstly, alhamdulillah, the sisters' luncheon for this Saturday, March 10th, is already sold out. Alhamdulillah, the luncheon for the women, the righteous wife, which will be this Saturday, March 10th, is sold out. The tickets are sold out. This class will be every Saturday. This class is every Monday. This is the first class. It will be every Monday after Maghrib. But the time is getting ready to go back. So on the flyer it says 6 o'clock, but the time is going up. But when the time goes up, it'll be connected to Maghrib, not 6 o'clock. When the time changes, it's supposed to be changed to Sunday. Saturday's class will be the same, Saturday morning after Fajr. Even though the time is going to change, it's still going to be right after Salat al-Fajr. The Ramadan classes will be starting probably in a couple weeks, so we can be prepared before Ramadan. And we go through the chapter Siyam, chapter of fasting before Ramadan, so that we can go through those classes before we start fasting, so we don't learn how to fast, while we fast, but try to, clear any misunderstandings or anything before Ramadan. Because Ramadan is supposed to be in the middle of May, inshallah, the middle of May. So more than likely, the pre-Ramadan class will be starting the beginning of April, like another 2 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks, inshallah. That's it. And this just came up last minute that the brothers down Maktab Taymiyyah, down Kensington, they just opened up a restaurant, mashallah. TK Homestyle Cooking down in Kensington on 29th and Kensington Avenue. They just opened up a restaurant, mashallah, tabarakallah, reward them. And that's it, just those quick announcements. And there'll be a lot of updates coming up for the upcoming events before Ramadan and after Ramadan. Everything will be on the social media pages.
Question. Sisters, lunch that's sold out, is it going to be any additional seats or that's right?
It's sold out.
Perhaps.
Oh, perhaps.
No, I straight, but I'm just saying.
Maybe. We'll find out after tonight. Oh, he still has one ticket.
Oh, you got one left?
Huh?
Well, if there's any extras, then we'll just update. Everything will be online now. Any extras, if there are any tickets left, as of now, it's done. But if anything happens or anything changes, we'll just update it, inshallah, on the social media. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين اللهم انفعنا بما علمتنا وعلمنا ما ينفعنا اللهم زدنا علما إنك أنت عليم الحكيم اللهم اجعل هذه المحاضرة حجة لنا لا حجة علينا يا رب العالمين أما بعد. Today's lecture, inshallah, or class, inshallah ta'ala, will be starting the chapter Sujood as-Sahw, prostration out of forgetfulness. One we paused for quite some time in this book. And inshallah ta'ala, we'll be picking it back up starting this evening. But before we get into the book itself, just a quick reminder up for myself and for the rest of the believers. Nabi alayhi salatu wassalam, he says in an authentic hadith, "Man yuridillahu bihi khayran yufaqihu fid din." Whoever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants good for, He will grant that person understanding in his religion. This path of understanding in the religion is a continuous path. Hopefully it's one that we will be upon until we die, until Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala calls our soul back. So the scholars of Islam, when they explain this hadith, they say that whoever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants good for, He will obviously grant him understanding in the religion. And some of them say likewise, the opposite is true. Whomsoever Allah does not want good for, that person will not be granted an understanding in his or her religion. Now the goal of having knowledge in the religion is to help us get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's not to show off to the people. It's not to say, I know this and I studied this and to the end. That's not the maqsood. That's not the goal. That's not the goal. Rather, the goal is you learn about your religion. We apply it to ourselves first and then to our families and so on and so forth. And it's a trial. It's a trial and it's a continuous trial. Nobody's perfect with it, but we have to continue to try until Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala calls us back. We're going to mention briefly before the class some statements from Ibn Qayyim al-Jawziyah. He has a book called Dar al-Miftah ila Sa'ada. Dar al-Miftah ila Sa'ada. In this book, Ibn Qayyim al-Jawziyah is from the Tulab, or the students of Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah. He says in his book, he mentions maybe 50 or more comparisons between the benefits of knowledge versus the benefit of wealth, meaning material gain. Now, the understanding of this, it doesn't mean that a person should not be concerned with getting money or making money. However, when you compare knowledge versus wealth, then he makes a huge comparison in this book called Dar al-Miftah ila Sa'ada. Dar al-Miftah ila Sa'ada. In other words, the door or the gate to success, right? So we're going to read some of the things that Ibn Qayyim, he mentions about the comparison between wealth and knowledge. And this is a reminder, ikhwan wa akhwat, brothers and sisters, for all of us, something to ponder on. I'm only going to read a few of them, not all of them. We'll be hours reading them. But inshallah ta'ala, I'll just read a few of them as a reminder for myself and as a reminder for the rest of us. The Shaykh rahimahullah ta'ala, he says, ahaduha, meaning the first one. أن العلم ميراث الأنبياء والمال ميراث الملوك والأغنياء. One of the distinctions between having knowledge and having wealth is that knowledge, and we're talking about knowledge here, we're talking about knowledge of the Sharia, knowledge of the Quran, and knowledge of the Sunnah. He says that knowledge is a form of inheritance or inheritance from the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam. It's wealth, or the knowledge is inherited from the prophets, Whereas wealth is inheritance from the maluk or the rich. That's one distinction. The next one he says, أن العلم يحرس صاحبه وصاحب المال يحرس ماله. He says that knowledge protects or preserves sahibahu, meaning the one who possesses knowledge, that knowledge will protect him or protect her. Whereas the one who has wealth, sahib al-mal, the one that has wealth, his job is to protect his wealth. That's another distinction between knowledge. In other words, knowledge protects the one who has it, whereas the one that has wealth has to protect his wealth. Wadah? Is that clear? Thank. The next one, another one, he says, إن صاحب المال إذا مات فارقه ماله والعلم يدخل معه قبره. Allahu Akbar. He says that إن صاحب المال, the one that has wealth, إذا مات فارقه, if the person that has wealth, when he or she dies, that wealth will separate from that person. Whereas knowledge, when a person dies and they have knowledge, it will follow them in their grave. It will follow them. يَدْخُلُ قَبْرُهُ مَعَهُ. It will enter into the grave with him. He says, أَنَّ الْعِلْمَ حَاكِمٌ عَلَى الْمَالِ وَالْمَالُ لَا يَحْكُمُ عَلَى الْعِلْمِ. He also mentions that knowledge rules over wealth, whereas wealth doesn't rule over knowledge. What does that mean? In other words, knowledge rules over wealth. If a person dies in Islam and they have thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, how will that wealth be divided? Islam, meaning knowledge of the deen, dictates who gets what. So therefore, knowledge rules over the wealth. The wealth does not rule over the knowledge. And the next one he says, أَنَّ الْمَالِ يَحْصُلُ لِلْمُؤْمِنِ وَالْكَافِرِ وَالْبِرِّ وَالْفَاجِرِ وَالْعِلْمُ النَّافِعِ لَا يَحْصُلُ إِلَّا لِلْمُؤْمِنِ. And we'll start with that last one. Right? He says that wealth will find people that have wealth that are believers, disbelievers, righteous, the unrighteous. Anyone can possess wealth. Whereas knowledge, ilmun nafi', beneficial knowledge, it will only be for those who believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It will only be for those who believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the next thing I wanted to mention about the benefit of knowledge, we find that when we study Islam, many of the ulama would mention, or the scholars about Islam, they will mention the benefit of knowledge is that it will yaqta' al-tariq, yani it will make the pathway shorter. Sitting and learning from scholars about Islam, it will make your pathway shorter. And so, one of the things we could look at, there's a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, his wife Juwayriya bint Harith. She prayed Fajr, and when he left, the Prophet ﷺ, when he left, she was making tasbih. Subhanallah. She was making tasbih. And so when he left, when the Prophet ﷺ left the house, and he came back after Duha. Duha is like some time later. This hadith was reported in Sahih Muslim. When he came back a few hours later, when the Prophet ﷺ returned a few hours later, she was still making tasbih for hours. Okay? This is the wife of the Prophet ﷺ. Her name was Juwayriya. And then the Prophet ﷺ, he said to her, مَا زِلْتِ عَلَى الْحَالِ الَّتِي فَارَقْتُكِ عَلَيْهَا. He said, you're still in the state in which I left you in. Meaning she was making tasbih. قالت نعم. She said, yes. قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم لقد قلت بعدك 4 كلمات 3 مرات لو وزنت بما قلت منذ اليوم لوزنتهن. He said, all that time that you were reciting or saying those dhikr, subhanallah, I can give you 4 statements that if you would have said that, it would have equaled everything that you said in all those hours. And some of the ulama say, rather, it's more than what she said. And some of the scholars say, no, rather, it would have been equal. And so the Prophet ﷺ, he taught her a dua. He said to her, you say, Subhanallah wa bihamdi, adada khalki wa rida nafsihi, wazinat arshihi. And he said this to her, you say this 3 times. He said, if you would have said this, then that would have been sufficient. That would have been sufficient or sufficed everything that you said between. It doesn't mean what she said was bad. Rather, this is something that was better for her, if she only knew. The ulama of Islam, they look at this hadith and they say, this here shows the fadlul ilm. It shows the virtue of knowledge. We find people doing things to worship Allah without any rules or regulation or any instructions. And they may be sincere, but they fall into error if you don't have rules and regulations and instructions. And so here is a hadith of our Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It shows the importance of knowledge. It shows the importance of understanding knowledge and to the end of it. And also This is not so everyone will think, well, I have to be a scholar of Islam, or I have to go study. No. Laysa shartan. Yani it's not a condition that everyone studies Islam. However, we need to know how to pray. We need to know how to do the basics. We need to know how to believe in Allah. We need to understand a proper aqidah, how we're supposed to believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and things like that. And so with that, we're going to start our dars tonight, inshallah ta'ala. Babu Sujood al-Sahwi. Does anyone have any information about Sujood al-Sahwi? Does anyone know anything about it?
It's a prostration for forgetfulness, adding something to the salat.
Okay. It's a prostration of forgetfulness,
Or adding something.
or taking something. Long time. Like anyone else? I was talking to a brother the other day. I said, you know, we have a class. No, it was today. I said, you know, I'm doing a class on Sujood al-Sahwi. So the brother said to me, oh, I already know that. All you got to do is just make prostration when you make a mistake. And I said, dang, mashallah. Early man wrote books about it. You just figured it out in 3 seconds. I mean, we were joking. But there's a lot of detail when it comes to things like that. If it was that simple in the class. Huh?
And I think, if I remember correctly, one of them do, I think it speaks when you take praying, it speaks, you do before, and then I think it's one after.
So inshallah ta'ala, in this chapter, we're going to study it, an easy, condensed way to understand it. We have books that are considered mutawwalat or mutawwalat, the bigger, more expansive books about this subject. For example, you can find in, I think, Al-Mustaq'ni, and probably in Tamheed and Istithqal and Ibn Abdul Barr. And other than them, this particular section is about 100 and something pages or more. Both sides, maybe 200 pages, talking about prostration out of forgetfulness. We're not doing that. We're going to do, and this is why the early men write books like Zaad Al-Mustaq'ni. Zaad Al-Mustaq'ni is a summarized version of a bigger book called Al-Muqni' from Ibn Qudama Al-Maqdisi. At any event, before we get into the text, we're going to, I know for some people, this may be somewhat confusing. If you just look at it really quick, we're going to explain it, inshallah ta'ala. We're going to go over this first, and then we'll jump into the text. And that way we can follow along, and it'll be easier to understand. And this is only one part of it. So, the first thing we got to understand is the chapter of Sujood al-Sahwi. Yushra'u. So this particular part of the prayer has been legislated in 3 instances. Does anyone know what those 3 cases are? Sujood al-Sahwi, or prostration out of forgetfulness, it has been legislated in 3 cases. Does anyone know what those 3 cases are? You said it, Jake. Adding something.
Forgetfulness. Omitting something.
Omitting, okay. Taking something away. Subtraction. They all fall under forgetting. I'm sorry? We're not talking, so it's legislated in 3 cases. It's broken down in 3 parts. The prostration of forgetfulness is broken down in 3 parts. Doubt, ahsant. So that we have addition or ziyada, naqs or omission or subtraction, was shak or doubt. These are 3 instances where prostration of forgetfulness is legislated. Today, we're only going to focus on 1 part. We're going to do a class just on 1 part of the 3, and then inshallah ta'ala, the next class we'll finish it, bi'idhnillah. So now that we know that it has been legislated in 3 parts, the part we're going to focus on today is a ziyada, additions, making additions to a person's salat. So the first thing, if we look at this here, if we look at the board here, it says additions at the top. So from additions, there are 2 parts of, there's 2 ways we can look at additions. a person can only add to their salat by one or two ways. Number one, fi'liya, meaning actions. Number two, statements. Is that clear so far? So how can a person add to their salat? Two ways. What are the two ways? Statements and actions. Or actions and statements. Okay. Now we're going to focus on, the first thing we're going to focus on is actions. So a person can be forgetful in their salat by adding something to the salat. Fine. So now the ulama look and say, okay, if you add something to the salat, then it can be looked at one or two ways. Either you're adding something that is originally from the salat, or you're adding something that is not from the salat, meaning an action. Any questions about that? Sisters in the back, there's a microphone there. If you have any questions, you can turn the microphone on and you can ask a question. Is everyone clear on that so far? Right. So then, we have actions, right? The actions that a person commit or do in the salat, there are two types. Either the action is from the salat, or the action is not from the salat. Is that clear? Right. What's an example of an action that's from the salat? A type of action that a person can do that is from the salat. من جنس بالعربي نقول من جنس الصلاة. يعني it's from the actions of the salat. طيب.
Making another extra prostration.
Ahsant. Making an extra prostration when you're praying. Now, is it from the salat? Is a prostration from the salat?
Yes.
Yes. Right. What else? What's another action? Making an extra ruku'. Making that, going down into ruku'. Maybe you did it one time, you come up, you go down again and ruku'. This action in its original form is from the salat. Right? Right. Any questions about that? Right. The next one. Well, we'll stick with that. The actions that are from the salat. The next one, the action laysat min jins as-salat. What type of action can a person do that is not from the salat?
Talking.
Huh?
Talking up in that prayer.
We're on actions. Remember, everything we're talking about now is under actions. Okay, what are some actions that a person can do in the salat that is not from the salat in and of itself? Moving? A lot of ahsans. The ulama, they say كثرة تحريك, يعني حركة كثيرة. Moving excessively. Huh? So for example, if I'm praying in the salat and I'm buttoning my shirt, my phone rings, I pull my phone out of my pocket, put it back. Is that a lot of movement? No. It's not considered a lot of movement. If you're praying and your phone rings and you pull your phone out your pocket, turn it off, put it back in your pocket, is that considered excessive movement?
Not excessive.
Not excessive. So then it has to be excessive. Let's say, for example, you're praying in the salat and your nose is running. And you're praying and you pull out a piece of tissue or a napkin, you wipe your nose, put it back in your pocket. Is that okay? It's okay. Right. Let's say you're blowing your nose, you're checking your phone, you're fixing your clothes, all in one time. Movement, excessive movement. What is the ruling on that? This is action that is not from the salat. If it's a lot of it, then it will nullify your prayer. It will nullify your prayer. Is that clear? Fine. Then let's go back to the actions that are from the salat. We're going to go back to the actions that are from. That's clear, Sheikh? Fine. We're going to go back to the actions that are from the salat. So from the actions that are from the salat, there are one or two actions that a person can do from the salat. Either they are doing this action that is from the salat intentionally, or they are doing this action from the salat and it's not intentional. Rather, they are forgetting. Well, is that clear? So let's go back. Let's say, for example, an example. We're right here now. Okay? Let's say, for an example, a person, he's praying, says Allahu Akbar, he goes down to ruku', Sami Allahu liman hamida, he comes back up, and instead of going down into sujood, he goes down into ruku' again. If a person does this intentionally, now many of the ulama, they say that it is hard to believe. These are issues that are considered iftirati. Yani, it's not likely to happen, but if it did happen, they have a ruling for it. A Muslim is not that knows how to pray in general is not going to go down to ruku' 2 times intentionally. If that were the case, it would nullify your prayer. It would nullify your prayer. Is that clear? If it's not clear, stop me.
Say it again.
Good. Which part?
The we were saying like the nullification of the prayer.
Uh-huh.
If he's doing
Turn
it.
Turn it on.
You're saying if he does it intentionally.
Uh-huh.
Or you're saying if he does it intentionally, like if he does,
If he goes into ruku' 2 times
Right.
intentionally, this will nullify a person's prayer. Wally? Does that make sense? Why would it nullify his prayer?
Because he's doing something. He knows he added to the salat.
He's doing something because they say you later nadam or nadam salat. Yani you're taking away from the rhythm of the salat. I'll give you an example. I'll give you one better. Right now we pray Salatul Isha. So you stood up and you came with a different, extra rak'ah. Because you feel like, you know what, I think Isha should have 5 rak'ah, not 4. Right? Like, is that rak'ah from our salat? Yes or no? It is. Rak'ahs are from the salat. Lakin, however, this rak'ah that you added is not from that particular salat. Meaning you added something that's from the salat to that prayer. Meaning you added something, movements that are from our prayer, but you added an additional movement from which we already have as movements to that particular prayer. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
that also fall under innovation.
It depends if it falls under innovation. We're not talking about innovation today. We got a whole nother lecture on innovation.
But you said you said that this has to be if a person knows he's done it, not by.
Yeah, this is intentional, right? Because right now we got 2 parts. We got intentionally or sahwan, or unintentionally, or forgetting. So let's say, for example, if the brother, he says, you know what, for Salatul Fajr. Fajr is how many rak'at? 2. He says, you know what, I feel like doing 3. I'm going to get closer to Allah. I want to do 3. Huh? I want to do 3. So everyone's looking at him, what are you doing? I'm adding a 3rd one. Because I feel like this is what I want to do. And I think this is going to help me get closer. When people do innovation, this is generally what they think, right? Now, if he's doing this intentionally, this will do what to his salat? Nullify the salat, okay? If he's doing that intentionally, then it will nullify the prayer. Well, what about if that person does it forgetting? Let's say, for example, he's praying Salatul Fajr. He stands up for the 3rd one. And while he's in the 3rd rak'ah for Salatul Fajr, he realizes, wait a minute, did I just pray an extra rak'ah? How many people fall? I'm sure that happened to the Prophet ﷺ, right? He's the best of all mankind. So you stood up for the 3rd when you see, you know what? Oh man, I messed up. I need to sit back down. So if this is your case in which you find that you have forgotten, and you pray the extra rak'ah for Salatul Fajr or Salatul Maghrib or Salatul Dhuhr or what have you. In this case, it is upon you 2 things. Number 1, you stop what you are doing right away. You stop. So you're standing up on the 3rd or the 4th rak'ah in Maghrib. You say, oh my gosh, this is the 4th one. You stop what you're doing. Wa yajlis wa yasjud. You stop what you're doing, you go back down and you make your sujood. Sujood as-sahw. And we'll talk about how to do it later. Assalamu alaikum. Now,
It might be off the subject, but it's bringing you back.
if it's off the subject,
No,
Sheikh.
it's not off the subject, but it's on the subject. What about the ruling of going with what you know, what you show with? And this is why I'm just a little confused.
What do you mean going with your show?
If you're praying and you're in doubt.
We didn't get there yet.
Okay.
You hit the fast forward button.
Okay. I just thought about it.
Mm-hmm.
So you saying, like, say for instance, you do it, say you come up and you're doing an extra one and you remember that, you know, you're doing too many.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So you're doing, excuse me, if you're doing to, do you go straight back down?
You go straight back down.
So
You stop what you're doing right away and go. You don't even have to say Allahu Akbar. You just stop what you're doing and go right back down.
Okay.
Now, and if you didn't do, let's say for example, you're doing an extra one for, you already did the tashahhud al-akhir, for example, for Fajr, and you stood up for a third one, and you realize, oh man, you go right back down, and if you already did the tashahhud, then you make your 2 prostrations, and you make taslim. And we'll get into that later, how to do it and so on and so forth. Now, so then, if we look at this side here, we did actions, we did not from the prayer, it nullifies the prayer, excessive movement. We did the actions that are from the prayer. If you do it intentionally, it nullifies the prayer. If you forget, then there are 2 things that are upon you to do, right? We're talking about actions. Are we clear on that?
No.
And okay, good. What's not clear?
Because you saying, okay, you said stop, and then you do the prostration for forgetfulness.
Right.
So you telling us to stop. Like say once we didn't already do the tashahhud.
Then you have to do the tashahhud then. See, here's the thing. Let's say it like this. Assume that you prayed Salat al-Fajr. For the second rak'ah for Salat al-Fajr, you didn't do tashahhud al-akhir. This is a rukn. And we're going to talk about that in the next class, in detail about that, before we get into nullification. But let's say you didn't do the tashahhud, and you stood up for the third one. You said, oh man, I messed up. Okay, you messed up, go back down, do your tashahhud al-akhir, meaning your last tashahhud. You make your 2 prostrations or in your taslim, like that. Is that clear? Now, there are some, now when we talk about, do you do it before the salam, after the salam, we'll deal with that later.
You're going back to where you were before you did too much. So if you...
Depends on, so, okay, right now we added something to the salat. The only example that I gave was adding an extra rak'ah. Let's say, for example, you added, and this is the assumption that is at the end of the salat. Like you added an extra rak'ah. So this is based off of adding an extra rak'ah. All right? If you add an additional rak'ah, like for example, Salat al-Fajr, you made a third one. As you made that third rak'ah, what you're doing now is you realize you're in the third one. You stop right away. Did I do tashahhud al-akhir, the last one? If you did, you go back down, you make your sujood as-sahw, and you make taslim. If you did not, then you have to do your tashahhud, the last tashahhud, and then you have to make taslim. Why do you have to do the last tashahhud? This is because it's a pillar in the salat. If one leaves it off, you have no salat. Is that clear? We'll talk about that in the next class, though.
One more question. What about if you're not sure?
Well, that's the doubt part. We didn't get there yet. Right now, all we're doing is additions. Right? This is why you got to break it down to parts. Understand, everything we're doing now is additions. You're adding something to the prayer. That's all we're talking about today. It's adding something to the prayer. Is everyone clear on that thus far? Sisters, if the sisters have questions, there's a microphone back there. You can turn it on. If you don't have questions.
What you saying that if I add an extra rak'ah, I had done it before, and I stand up and I stood up and made 2.
If you did the extra rak'ah, you made salams?
Yeah, and I was on, I added one, and I was like in between doubt.
All right, see, if you're between doubt, that's a whole nother issue. We'll get to that. Right now, we're talking about what you know for sure that you added.
Right.
And this part here is while you're in the process of doing it, not once you already finished. That's a whole different issue. All right? Right now, if you're in the process of doing it, you added it, you realize it, you stop what you're doing, and you go back. All right? This is why this chapter is huge, right? So we're condensing it to very specific nuqat, very specific points so you understand, and then we can expand later. Okay? Right now, is this clear? No questions on text. So now we're going to move to the part about, we didn't even start reading the text yet. Once you understand this, when we read the text, it's going to be easy. Inshallah. Right? The next part is statements. So a person can make additions in the salah By statements. So now, the question now is statements or qawliya, they're broken down into two parts. Statements that are from the salat and statements that are not from the salat. Well, is that clear? So let's look here. We have statements that are from the salat. Min jins salat does not nullify the prayer except for taslim in an inappropriate place. So for example, what does that look like? Let's say, for example, if a person is, starts off with Al-Fatiha. He recites Al-Fatiha. Then after Al-Fatiha, he starts saying, Subhana Rabbil A'la, Subhana Rabbil Azim, Sami Allahu liman hamidah. While he's standing, this does not nullify that person's salat. Well, it's makruh, it's hated, but it doesn't nullify. Right now we're talking about what nullifies that prayer. Now, there is one thing that would nullify the prayer. Let's say, for example, you're standing, you're reciting Al-Fatiha, and then after you finish reciting Al-Fatiha, you say, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. This will nullify your salat. Is that clear? That's the only statement, and many of the Salaf, they say this is the only statement that will nullify your salat. If it's a statement from the salat, in general, it will not nullify your salat except for saying the taslim outside of its appropriate place. Now let's assume you make 2 raka'ats, and there's 4 raka'at to pray. And you make taslim after 2 raka'at for salat al-dhuhr. He says, but you're in, you do the tashahhud, you say, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Does this nullify your salat? No. It doesn't. Why? Because you made the taslim in the proper place, but not in the proper time. You did it in its proper place, meaning sitting down in tashahhud, but you didn't do it in its proper time, meaning it should have been at the end of the salat, not in the middle. The Prophet ﷺ did that. And when he did that, they asked the Prophet ﷺ, has the salat been shortened? He said no. And he said, well, you only did this. And he came back and he added the 2, and then he made the sujood as-sahwi.
And continue.
We're going to talk about that too.
Even if you salam out?
Yeah, even if you salam out. If you salam out, then you have to go back into the salat. If you salam out while you're in a position to make the salam. Not when you're standing. Let's say you're in ruku'. You go down, Allahu Akbar, and while you're down, you say, Subhana Rabbil Azim, and then you say, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. This will nullify your salat. Let's say when you come up, Sami Allahu liman hamidah, and you say, Rabbana wa lakal hamd, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. This will end your salat. Because it's not in the right place. Right? Well then, like, let's say you were in sujood. Your face is on the ground and you say, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Your salat is over. Alright? Right. The next part, it says, Qawliya laysat min jins as-salat. Yani not from the salat. Let's say, for example, you were praying. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. See me after I finish praying. Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. This will nullify your salat. Any statement that is not from the statements of the salat made in the salat will nullify your salat. Well, there? Are you laughing?
I thought you was telling me that.
No. I was trying to make an example. You start off praying, you say, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Oh, I'll see you after the class. Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim Maliki. I'll see you after the salat. Or somebody comes in, you praying, you say, Assalamu alaikum. Alhamdulillah, wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. This nullifies your salat. However, I don't know, I shouldn't have mentioned that one. Because there's some difference of opinion among the Mutaqaddimeen from the earlier scholars. Because there's a narration that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam did that to one of the companions. Actually, the narration goes like this. When the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he sent the companions to Habasha, which is modern day Ethiopia, right? He sent the companions there, and during that time, one of the companions said, when I left, I gave the salam to the Prophet when he was praying, he replied. He said, but then when I got back, and I gave him the salams, he did not reply. And so he asked him, why didn't he reply? He said, for indeed, the salat shughlan, meaning the salat is, I'm working, meaning I'm praying. And then after that, there are other narrations that say that this is not permissible now, but some of the earlier scholars may say that's permissible, but we're going to go with the position that it's not. Tayyib?
So,
don't ask about that.
what?
about what I just said right now?
No, this is about, like, say, for instance, you're trying to do a hand gesture.
That's cool.
But
if someone comes and gives the salams, you're like,
no, I'm sorry, say, for instance, like a cat or a kid is coming, you're praying, but you ask, your intention wasn't to say nothing, but you happen to say something. So
like what?
Move.
Yeah. Welcome to Salat.
Okay.
And we're going to get into more detail as we read. Right now, this is all general so that we can understand the text. Tfadal.
All right. I was praying and my grandson came in the room. You about not did like that.
That's okay. It's movement, but it's not excessive movement. Right? You did movement, but it wasn't excessive. Right. Are we clear on this chart right here for the most part? You sure? Is everyone clear on the chart? All right, so when I start reading, I'm going to refer back to it. All right? Y'all ready? Got your seatbelt on? Like,
I got a question.
you got a question before we start reading?
Yeah.
Like,
And you said not from, if I'm in Ruku, I'm bowing. Instead of me saying, Subhana Ati, I said, Subhanallah. That's it.
It does not nullify your salat. You shouldn't say that. You should say what you're supposed to, but it doesn't. No. Right now we're talking about nullifiers of the salat when it comes to that particular part right there. Okay? So a quick rehash. When it comes to additions to the salat, there are two parts. Either statements or actions. Statements have two parts. Either the statements are from the salat or the statements are not from the salat. If the statements are from the salat, it does not nullify your salat unless you're making taslim. If the statements are from the salat, it's hated, but it doesn't nullify. Or if the statements are not from the salat, it will nullify your salat. Is that clear? Or no? Right. The next part. Actions. We have two types of actions. Either the actions are from the salat or the actions are not from the salat. If the actions are from the salat, then we have to ask ourselves, did this person do it intentionally or was it out of forgetfulness? If it was done intentionally, then this nullifies the salat. This addition to the salat, it nullifies. If it was done unintentionally, sahwan, or out of forgetfulness, then they stop and they make, then the prostration of forgetfulness is incumbent upon them to do. It is obligatory for them to make that prostration out of forgetfulness. Are we clear on this chart right here? It's easy now, right? Or no? Huh? Alhamdulillah. Tayyib. So now we're going to read from Zaad Al-Mustaq'ni, but everything that is in here is on this board. I just try to make it a little simpler. As we read this here, we're going to break it down, but you're going to be able to refer back to this. Okay, here we go. Okay, it falls into this. One of the things when the scholars, they teach, they try to teach you to make mind maps, right? With a mind map, it's easier to figure stuff out. Because, okay, either this or this. If it falls into this, this is the ruling. If it falls into that, this is the ruling. Right? طيب. قال المصنف رحمه الله تعالى يشرع لزيادة ونقص وشك. So the author, Abu Musa Hajjawi, rahimahullah ta'ala, he says, يشرع لزيادة, that prostration of forgetfulness has been legislated if a person adds something to the salat, or naqsin, takes something away from the salat, wa shakkin, or having doubt. He says, La fi amdan fi fardin wa nafilah. It has not been legislated if a person does it in fi amdan, if a person intentionally does any of those three, add something to the salat, take something away from the salat, or obviously you have doubt about something in the salat intentionally, then the prostration of forgetfulness has not been legislated in that case, nor in the sunnah prayers, like the rawatib, for example, the sunnah prayers that you pray. He says, فَمَتَ زَادَ فِعْلًا مِنْ جِنْسِ الصَّلَاةِ. He says, so when a person adds an action, and that action is from the salat. Now he's giving examples. قِيَامًا, if they stand, قُعُودًا, sitting, ruku'an, making ruku', sujudan, amdan batalat. If a person does any of those things, standing, we're not supposed to stand. Sitting down, we're not supposed to sit. Making ruku', you're not supposed to make ruku'. Making sujood, you're not supposed to make sujood. all of those things will nullify the salah if they are done intentionally. Is that clear? طيب. وَسَهْوًا يَسْجُدُ لَهُ. If a person does those things out of forgetfulness, then they make sujood. They make sujood. وَإِنْ زَادَ رَكْعَةً فَلَمْ يَعْلَمْ حَتَّى فَرَغَ مِنْهَا سَجَدَ. If a person adds a rak'ah, we're back in actions. If a person adds a rak'ah to the salah, فَلَمْ يَعْلَمْ, and they don't realize it, حَتَّى فَرَغَ مِنْهَا, until they actually finish off praying, sajada, then they come back and they make the sujood as-sahw. وَإِنْ عَلِمَ فِيهَا جَلَسَ فِي الْحَالِ. And if they know while they're doing it, then they stop and they prostrate, or they stop and do what is necessary to fix that salah. Well then?
And this is one prostration.
What do you mean one prostration?
Like when you come, so if you catch it in the middle of it, like you going up for that third, and you catch it.
You mean rak'ah you talking about?
No, when you say you come back down for your prostration, right? If you, let's say you finish it, you go back up, and you about to make a third, and you catch yourself.
You catch yourself before you do it?
Like, I guess in the middle of it.
Okay, then you go back to where you was before that. All right? Now, the question now is it legislated? Yes, the prostration is legislated because you forgot. Right? But so then he says, فَالتَّشَهَدَ إِن لَمْ يَكُمْ تَشَهَدَ وَسَجَدَ وَالتَّسْلِيمِ. And they say in this case, if you added something to the salat, like say for example, you stood for a fifth rak'ah for Isha, it says you go back down. If you and make your tashahhud, make your prostration, and make your taslim, if you haven't done it. And he says, وَإِن صَحَّ وَإِن صَبَّحَ, the question you asked. وَإِن صَبَّحَ بِهِ ثَقَتَانِ. If two people that are trustworthy to you, sabbaha. So what that means is, say for example, the imam is leading the salah, and he comes up for the extra rak'ah for Maghrib. He comes up for the fourth one. Two people say, Subhanallah, Subhanallah. Two people that are thiqa, meaning two people that he trusts and understands that they know what they're doing. He says in this case, for asarra, if he continues, meaning if he continues deliberately to continue on what he's doing, even though two trustworthy people behind him indicated to him that he added something to the salah. It says, لم يجزم بصواب نفسه بطلت صلاته. So let's say, for example, two people informed him by saying Subhanallah that he made an addition to the salah. While he's leading the salah, in his mind, he's not certain that he's correct. Rather, he has doubt like that. Maybe they are right, but I'm going to just keep on going. If he does that, this will nullify his salah. This will nullify the imam's salah, and it will nullify the people praying behind him that knows that he made an addition, but they didn't stop praying. Well, and I'm going to explain that in detail. So the Shaykh, rahimahullah ta'ala, he says, وَلَمْ يَجْزَمْ بِصَوَابْ نَفْسِهِ بَطَلَتْ صَلَاتُهُ. So right now we want the part that the imam, the one that's leading the salah, it nullifies his prayer. وَالصَّلَاةُ مَنْ تَبِعَهُ عَالِمًا. Whoever follows him in that error, meaning they know that he made a fifth rak'ah, and they know that it's wrong. I say the two people that said Subhanallah, they know. But they continue to pray with him on the fifth rak'ah, even though they know that it's wrong. This will also nullify their salah. However, if there are people that are praying with them that are jahilan, jahilan meaning they don't know, or nasiyan, or they forgot themselves, then their salah is not nullified. Well then, is that clear? You sure?
What are you doing? You're saying if you do know, and you said subhanallah, but he keeps going to the fifth rak'ah.
So what are you supposed to do?
Right.
طيب ينوي المفارقة. لا ينوي المفارقة. What this means is you make the intention to separate from the salah. You can do that. And we'll talk about that as well. Let's say, for example, the imam is doing that, and you're like, man, this is wrong. Then you just step off to yourself, Go back down, do your whatever you're going to do. Either you're going to do this sujood sahwi and your tashahhud or what have you, and you're going to make taslim and go on about your way. This is permissible in Islam. Well, then. So then he says here, طيب. والصلاة من تبعه عالما لا جاهلا أو ناسيا ولا من فارقه. And it does not nullify the salat of the one who followed him out of ignorance, followed him because he forgot, or they broke off from the salat to do their own thing so that they don't want to be a part of that. Their salat is okay. The only ones whose salat is messed up in this case are the ones who followed him knowing that it was wrong. Knowing that it was wrong. And if this something like this were to happen in real life, we'll talk about that later. So then it says, وَعَمَلٌ مُسْتَكْثِرٌ عَادَةً مِنْ غَيْرِ جِنْسِ الصَّلَاةِ يُبْطِلُهَا عَمْدُهُ وَصَحْوُهُ. So the next issue now is we're talking about actions. This one right here. Actions that are not from the salat. مُسْتَكْثِرَةٌ عَادَةً يعني مُسْتَكْثِرٌ عَادَةً. So let's say, for example, a person, and we already went over this is just quick rehash, if a person is moving excessively in the salat. Question now is, how do we gauge excessive movement? What do we have in place that will let us know what is considered excessive movement? Because to me, excessive might be one thing, but to you, it might be something else, and to him, it might be something else. What do we use? What is our tool to determine what is excessive movement and what is not excessive movement? It's a good question. All right? You keep saying excessive movement. How do we know excessive movement? How do we know something that is excessive and something that's not?
Too much out the norm.
Too much what?
Out the norm.
Well, what's the norm? How do we know what is considered excessive? Does anyone know? Think about it.
Give them too much attention.
If we give them, how do we know that too much attention is given? How do we know that? What are we using to find out? How do we gauge too much attention?
If it's distracting others.
It's not the gauge. A person might pull his phone out of his pocket and turn it off, might distract somebody. Is that considered excessive movement though? How do we gauge excessive movement? So the ulama, they gauge excessive movement by saying ayatatan. So we have in a religion, we have maxims, right? Legal maxims in our deen, right? These maxims are in place to help us judge and make decisions in certain things, right? So in this case, we have something in Islam called al-'ada muhakkama. Al-'ada muhakkama. This is a principle or qaida in the religion that our customary practice has a ruling in Islam as long as it doesn't go against any texts that have been established.
If you're on the line and the guy next to you praying and he's rocking, is that considered excess movement?
Why? Well, it depends. Why is he rocking? Is he sick? Does he have a condition? You know what I'm saying? You can't be quick, oh brother, your salat is bottled. It's not correct. The purpose of studying this is to rectify ourselves, not to be looking at somebody else, because that's not your responsibility. Unless they tell you, I like moving in the salat. Oh, brother, you got to be careful, right? The problem is, a lot of us, sometimes we may learn something, and you say, you know what, I learned this, I'm going to implement this on somebody. Instead of saying, listen, I learned this, let me implement it on myself, on my family, make sure we're good. You never know. You see somebody rocking, they might have a condition, right? People may have medical conditions, and so sometimes we're quick to, So you got to be careful. So the next one, the Shaykh Rahimahullah says, وَلَا يُشْرَعُ لِيَسِيرِهِ سُجُودٌ. If a person, it is not legislated for a person to do sujood as-sahu if they only move slightly. It's not even legislated. وَلَا تَبْطِلُ بِيَسِيرِهِ. Now the next issue is going to raise some eyebrows. لَا تَبْطِلَ. And I'm mentioning this because this is in our text, right? It says, لَا تَبْطِلُ بِيَسِيرِ أَكْلٍ أَوْ شُرْبٍ سَهْوٍ وَجَهْلٍ. Let's say, for example, a person is praying. Right? Let's say, for example, a person is praying in the Salat. And while he's praying, let's say Tarawih. Tarawih is a long Salat. Right? Like, let's say, for example, a person is praying Salatul Tarawih. And it's a long time. And he's hungry. He digs in his pocket and pull out some gum or some candy, put in his mouth, chew it up real quick. Has a bottle of water, drink it real quick, put it away. Now, why did this person do this? This person did this sahwan wa jahlan. This person did it because he wasn't thinking. And this person did it, or this person did it because they're a new Muslim, they don't know any better. In this case, it does not nullify their salah. Well, then, it's not my statement, Akeem. I see you looking at me. I can't wait to get home and tell people about this. Well, listen, this is the statement of Ibn Qudama al-Maqdisi and the Hanabila from the Mutaqaddimin, the ulama from way in the past, like the 2nd, 3rd century. This is old stuff. It's nothing new. All right? So the next issue, they says, وَلَا نَفْلٌ بِيَسِيرٍ شُرْبٍ عَمْدًا. Now listen to this. If a person is praying, so we understand the part about praying in the Salat and you do it forgetting out of ignorance. A person might eat something small or it doesn't nullify their Salat. As long as it's yasir, a small amount. Not intentionally. We're talking about they do it forgetting and not knowing. So don't start praying. You know what, man? Like, the next issue. وَلَا نَفْلٌ بِيَسِيرٍ شُرْبٍ عَمْدًا. Let's say, for example, now we're praying sunnah prayers. We're strictly doing sunnah prayers now. Before we might have been praying obligatory. Now we're talking about a sunnah prayer, right? If a person is praying Tarawih, like we mentioned, and they decide to drink some water, amdan, intentionally. Intentionally, right? Pull out. Not a lot, just a sip like that, put it back in their pocket, and they continue to pray. And they do it intentionally, not out of mistake and not out of ignorance. They do it intentionally. This here is something that is considered okay. Like Sunnah prayer. Only. Like, and this is due to what? What's the dalil for that? What's the evidence that the ulama mentioned to support that? لما روى أن ابن الزبير أو ابن الزبير شرب في التطوع. That Ibn Zubayr, one of the Sahaba, شرب في التطوع. He drank water while they were praying for their sunnah prayer. So the question would be, is a statement or action of a Sahaba hujjah am la? Is it issues of usul? Is a statement, action of a companion, is that a proof in Islam? Yes or no? It becomes a proof in Islam if we don't find any of the other companions making inkar. If we don't find any of the other companions say, hey, this is not correct. So in this case, but notice they did not mention eating. It was only drink. So if a person is, you know what? The brother gave a class and he said, I can drink. If it's, you know what? He didn't say eat, but I'm assuming it's the same. There's a difference between eating and drinking. One thing about the ulama, when they speak, they're very daqiq, very specific in what they say, particularly when they deal with these issues. Like, any questions about that? So if a person eats or drinks in the salah, jahilan or nasiyan, it doesn't nullify their salah. If they do it out of ignorance, meaning they didn't know, or they didn't know, or they forgot. This is something that is pardon. It doesn't break your salah. طيب. وإن أتى بقول مشروع في غير موضعه. Now we're going back. Now we're moving over to statements. Okay. Let's say, for example, if a person makes a statement outside of its proper place, and they're going to give some examples. كالقراءة في سجود وقعود. Let's say, for example, a person is in sujood. They're making sujood. And while they're in sujood, they're reciting the Quran. As we know, when you're in sujood, this is not the place to recite the Quran in the sujood, right? Or you're in qu'ud. Let's say you're sitting for your jalsa istirah. For example, you're sitting and while you're sitting, you're also reciting Quran. This is not the place for it. Or you're making tashahhud, and when you're supposed to be making the tashahhud, you're reciting Quran. This is not legislated, but it does not nullify your salat. وَفِي قِيَامٍ وَقِرَاءَةِ سُورَةٍ فِي الْآخِرَتَيْنِ. Also, some people may not know this, but if you're reciting, let's say for example, Dhuhr, Asr, Maghrib, and Isha. Right? Anything over 2 raka'at, right? So for Dhuhr, the first 2 raka'at, we're supposed to recite Al-Fatiha wa Surah. Al-Fatiha and another surah for the first raka'at and the second raka'at. However, for the third raka'at, it's only Al-Fatiha. For the fourth raka'ah, it's only Al-Fatiha. This is for Dhuhr, Asr, Maghrib, and Isha. Is that clear? It's clear. It's clear, Sheikh? It's clear? Right. If a person adds an additional surah, for example, Salatul Isha, the third raka'ah, instead of just reciting Al-Fatiha to yourself, you're going to recite another surah on top of that. This is not the place for that. However, it does not nullify your salah. So he says, لَمْ تَبْطُ وَلَمْ يَجِبْ لَهُ سُجُودٌ بَلْ يُشْرَعْ. If a person does this, it does not nullify their salah. However, the prostration of forgetfulness is legislated. Meaning, you can do it, or you don't have to. And we'll talk about that later. You can do it, or you don't have to. What are we talking about?
Frustration.
For what though? For doing what?
Saying like adding a surah in the third rak'ah.
Ahsant. Adding a surah in the third rak'ah, reciting in places you shouldn't recite in. It's legislated, but you don't have to do it. Okay? طيب. وَإِنْ سَلَّمَ قَبْلَ إِتْمَامِهَا عَمْدًا بَطَلَتْ. If a person gives taslim, person makes taslim, salamu alaykum rahmatullah, if they're standing or whatever, this here nullifies the salah. We already spoke about that before in this chart. Right? It says, وَإِنْ كَانَ سَهْوًا ثُمَّ ذَكَرَ قَرِيبًا أَتَمَّهَا وَسَجَدَا. If a person makes a mistake, as we mentioned, and then they remember that they made the mistake, then they fix it, أَتَمُّهَا, meaning they fix whatever they made their mistake in, and they make their sujood, their prostration. فَإِنْ طَالَ الْفَصْلُ عُرْفًا أَوْ تَكَلَّمَ. So let's say, for example, we made a 4th raka'ah for Maghrib. We finished praying now. Right after the salat, if we remember right away, we can go back, make sujood as-sahw, and fix it. Is that clear? That's clear? We made the extra rak'ah for Maghrib. We made it 4. After the salat, right away, oh man. We go down, we fix it. We make this sujood as-sahw, we make taslim. Right? But let's say, for example, فَإِنْ طَالَ فَصْلُ عُرْفًا. Let's say, for example, we made 4 rak'ah for Maghrib. And we're sitting back 10, 15, 20 minutes. Or we start talking about something. Like the Eagles winning the Super Bowl, for example. Something, anything. Anything outside of the salat. That's the point. Anything outside of the salat, right? You talk about anything outside of the salat. So it says, أَوْ تَكَلَّمَ لِغَيْرِ مَصْلَحَتِهَا. We started speaking about anything that was not applicable to the salat, batalat. Then this invalidates our salat. So 2 things we mentioned. If a person is sitting for a long period of time, or a person starts talking about something that has nothing to do with the salat, this will nullify your prayer. What are we talking about? A person made a 4th rak'ah for Maghrib. He made how many? A 4th rak'ah. Once the salat is over, he's sitting there, 15, 20 minutes go by, he realizes it's too much time. The next scenario, 15, 20 minutes goes by, he's talking about football and the Super Bowl. Then he realizes, oh man, in this case, you have to pray Maghrib all over again. Okay? When I say nullify your salat, that means you have to pray that salat over again. Right. And it says, كَكَلَامِهِ فِي صُلْبِهَا. And this is similar to him making or talking while he's praying. وَلِمَصْلَحَتِهَا إِنْ كَانَ يَسِيرًا لَمْ تَبْطُلْ. Now let's say, for example, you do the same thing. We prayed Salatul Maghrib, we stood off on the side, 2 minutes, and you're like, man, I think I made an extra rak'ah. And, you know, let me go fix it. This type of speech, as long as it was with the intention of fixing your salat, then you can go back and fix it, as this action was displayed by the Prophet ﷺ in his conversation with Dhul Yadayn. This was an issue that came up. He came to the Prophet ﷺ and asked him, was the salat increased? And he asked one of the other companions, and he went back and he fixed the salat. Right? But it happened right after the salat. And lastly, the last part, وَلَمْ تَبْطُلْ وَقَحْقَحَةٌ كَالْكَلَامِ. If a person yadhak, if a person laughs in their salat, batalat. Your salat is invalid. Let's say, for example, you're praying and you think about something, you laugh. This nullifies your salat. This nullifies your salat. If you laugh in your salat, I'm not saying smiling, I said laugh. It's soaked with a sound. If you laugh in your salat, it nullifies your salat. So the ulama say kalam, as if you were speaking. The next issue, or the next three issues that we're going to mention, they have the potential to nullify your salat, إِذَا بَانَ حَرْفًا, meaning if a sound, as if you said a couple letters, if it's that much, then it will nullify your salat. So the first thing they mentioned, an-nafkhun. An-nafkhun. Say for example, a person is blowing, making a whoop, a whistle or something like that, or blowing. This will or could nullify the salat, إِذَا بَانَ حَرْفًا, if it's a lot of it, meaning as if two letters come out. The next one, انتحب من غير خشية الله. If a person cries in the salat, but this crying has nothing to do with fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Wale? I say, for example, a person could be crying because he had a bad day at work. Boss was getting on his nerves, he's about to hurt him, and you're crying because you're mad. Not because you're thinking about Allah, you're thinking about something else, and you're mad about it, and you're crying, and you're bana harfan. You know, you're making a sound that's as if you said two letters. This type of sound. Now, if a person cries in the salat, obviously this is something that is okay, as long as you're crying lillah, for the purpose of Allah, or for the sake of Allah, or you're thinking about Allah, that's something different. Whereas if a person cries for something else, then this could nullify the salat. Now,
what if one is thinking about an old sin?
You're thinking about your Lord.
So that's okay.
That's different.
So what if it's the janazah prayer?
Sujood as-sahw is not legislated for janazah prayers. Sujood as-sahw is not legislated for janazah prayers. It's also not legislated for sujood as-shukr. And it's also not legislated for sujood as-sahw. Say, for example, you made a mistake and keep making sahw. You don't keep doing it over and over again. Well, there. So the next one is tanahnaha. If a person makes a noise like intentional. All these are intentional. We're not talking about, say for example, we're praying and you try to get somebody's attention. This will nullify your salat. If a person does that intentionally, this will nullify your salat. If you didn't know, inshallah, we know now. We know now. Right. And with that, inshallah ta'ala, we have finished the first part of sujood as-sahw. The next part, next week, we'll go over a naqs, deficiency. Go ahead, zoom in. Anybody know how to work this? I don't know.
People online can't.
That's what they said?
You were talking about sujood as-sahw, right? For after you slammed out for Maghrib, for instance, if you made 4 rakats. So what if you slammed out, you sat to the side, you started doing your adhkar, you started dhikring.
Man, listen, I can't multitask. Give me 1 second. I'm not that good, man. No, seriously, I'm not that good. Give me 1 second. I need help with my multitask skills, man.
For what?
It's online.
Oh, you got it.
No, I ain't got it.
Okay, what was the question again?
Now you want me to multitask.
Mashallah.
No, you were saying that. Why don't you just hold it? And then take it another day and just, because you done, right?
Yeah, I'm done. I'm
Take it
done.
in.
Do the sisters have any questions in the back? I guess not. Mashallah.
My question was, the question was, all right, so you were saying,
They said they shot, I think they shot like that.
Oh, that's cool.
for the four,
If they want to write it down, they can. They don't want to say that.
for Maghrib,
Uh-huh.
if you did 4 rakats and you slammed out, you make a dhikr and then you remember after your dhikr, although I know you were saying the speech is other than.
As long as what you're doing, if, like say for example, you feel you make it subhanallah, all this is.
That's what I'm.
Yeah, it's different. Right, we're talking about something that's outside.
of the
That's why I mentioned the Super Bowl.
Yeah,
That's something outside of what we will be doing.
I wanted to make sure.
Yeah, nah.
So if I forget, say if I did that extra rakat, so I would just drop straight down.
Yes. While you're in the process of the extra rak'ah, yes, you stop what you're doing.
Would I come straight down?
It depends then. Did you do, let's say for example, we're talking about Isha, right? So you prayed Isha with 4 rak'ah, and then you came, and then for the 4th rak'ah, you did Tashahhud, right? In this case, once you stand up, and you remember, you come right back down, and you do your prostration of forgetfulness, and you make your taslim.
What do I say for so prostrate?
We'll talk about that in the next class.
All right, cool.
But the point is, right now, you're going to make your prostration and do what you usually do. Subhanallah, Rabbil A'la, Taranda. That's the general. But we'll talk about that more in detail in the next class.
Okay.
Now,
You're in the second rakat, but you didn't do a tashahhud. If you come up past the ruku sign,
we'll talk about that in the next class. Because that's a whole, this is, okay, so the next class, we're going to talk about the pillars and the wajibat of the salat. How do you know when you have to make sujood sahwi versus when you should make it? That's in the next class. All right? So it's very detailed. I just want everyone to understand this part now. Review it. Talk about it with your family. Go back and forth on it. If you have questions, come back and talk about it later. And then we're going to move on to subtractions and dot. All right? No questions. We're going to end with this. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant. Astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Wa jazakumullahu khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Everything else okay? Yeah, mashallah. Let's shake with it me. Supposedly.
I was going to do the same thing, though. Like, I need to go through it and make sure I'm clear.
I remember this.
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah.
Yeah.
You must have read my mind.
You want to stop that?